My husband Sam, 43, and I, 40 female, have 3 kids. After the birth of my youngest son, Sam and I rarely went on a romantic trip alone, as it was challenging to reconcile for several reasons. When my youngest son turned 18 and moved out because of college, I was very excited because we always agreed to go to France to stay in a beautiful hotel and a fancy room. After all, it was my dream, and with 3 children I couldn't do it totally. My husband then asked to make it a surprise. He would book everything, restaurants, a hotel, plane tickets, but I told him which hotel I wanted to stay in and the type of room, as it was always my dream trip with him. We're in an excellent financial situation, so we could easily pay for it. We arrived at the hotel, he spoke to the receptionist, and we went to the room. I was shocked when I found my children and mother waiting for us. My excitement went downhill from there. Honestly, I couldn't hide it because it wasn't what I imagined. It got worse when he said that because there were too many people to pay, he got cheaper rooms and that our son would sleep with us because it was cheaper. I tried to keep up appearances, but I gave my husband that look, and when I could, I went to the receptionist and asked for a better room for me. I paid with my service bonus, which is something my husband and I don't share, agreed between us. My husband was super annoyed, saying that this was a rude thing to do and that he wanted to have family time but couldn't afford something more expensive, in addition to having reacted poorly to his surprise. It would be everyone's first time, and he wanted to give this moment for the first time at the same time to everyone, so he didn't even want to go to my room. I loved visiting all the places, but having the presence of 5 more people, it was highly discouraging. I love my children, my mother, and my mother-in-law, but it was my dream to have a romantic trip for 2. It's worth saying every year, except during the global issue, we travel to another country. We've never been to France. The trip was okay. My husband and I were not doing very well. When we got home, he said my attitude of paying for a more expensive suite was childish and made everyone uncomfortable, and that my discouragement spoiled our trip. Am I the idiot? Edit. Yes, when I said I wanted to go to France, I said I wanted a romantic trip only for 2. Who hasn't heard of a romantic trip for 7? That's every new empty nester's dream, isn't it? And with the mother-in-law. I can't think of anything more romantic. You are not the idiot, but I think paying for a more expensive room is the least of your problems. I would ask him why he invited the others along and think you would like it when he knew you wanted and were expecting a romantic trip for 2. But only 1 kid was sleeping with them. LOL. OP, your husband never listened to what you wanted, and inviting 5 other people? Why? Plus your mom and mother-in-law, because the kids weren't enough. If I arrived at a trip planned by my wife and found my mother there, I would have turned around and left. Also, he's not seeing that sharing a room with an 18-year-old is ridiculous. How? You're in France. This is not some low-budget family vacation. But how did your mom keep this a secret from you? Did she know about the fact you wanted a romantic trip? And your kids? What's wrong with the rest of your family? It's so crappy. He failed massively at the task. I'm very sorry. It's disappointing, and also planning things for 7 people to do in Paris is a big hassle and requires a lot of coordination. Plus, expensive and not romantic at all. You've had plenty of family vacations and this was not that. You need couples counselling. To be more generous to the husband, it might be that he doesn't know how to be an adult without being a father. Their youngest is 18 and they're in their early 40s. Their adulthood and marriage have been defined by parenthood. He might not know how to be a husband outside of parenthood. His behaviour is still unacceptable, but it matters whether his behaviour is driven by how he sees her or by how he sees himself. My sister Kate and I, female, follow different religions. I'm Catholic and she's evangelical. We have our ideological differences, but we have a very close relationship. After all, it was just me, her and my mother our entire childhood and adolescence. I was proposed to 3 months ago. I decided I would have a maid of honour, my sister, and no bridesmaid. My fiancé agreed and chose only his best friend. There'll be a religious ceremony at the church and then we'll go to a venue where the party will take place. For me, it's essential to get married in church. It'll happen in 4 months. When I asked Kate to be my maid of honour, she was super excited. But during the preparations, when she learned that I would have a ceremony at the church, she seemed uncomfortable, but I didn't question it. I waited for her to speak. Well, last week she called me for coffee and said that she didn't feel comfortable going to a Catholic church because of her religion, so she couldn't attend the religious ceremony. But she would love to attend the party and participate in everything. She just wouldn't go to the ceremony. I got really upset and said, "This is an important moment for me, much more than the party, and I wish all the people I love were there, including you." She replied, "I don't feel comfortable going into churches other than my own, but I will participate in everything else." Me? "I don't feel comfortable in other churches either, but I went with the greatest honor to your wedding because I know it was important to you and me." She stuck to the decision, and I felt so tired and sad that I just got up and walked away. After a lot of thinking, I called her and said, "If one of the people I love the most can't stay 2 hours at the most important moment for you, even though I asked you to be there, then I think you shouldn't come to my wedding. If you can't make a concession for me, I shouldn't make one for you." Well, she keeps texting me, saying that I'm overreacting and that I should respect her stance. She and my mother are pressuring me to go back on my decision. I'm just really upset. It's something extremely important to me. I would like to have her be there and on my side, but she doesn't want to, and I feel betrayed because I did it for her and she won't do it for me. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If her faith is that fragile that being in a building where people practice a slightly different method of faith to the same God she worships, then she's beyond ridiculous. Write her off. Her fragile faith is more important to her than her family. A maid of honor who feels okay with refusing to be at the wedding. Unbelievable. People of different religions go to churches for weddings all the time. I'm Protestant and have never had an issue attending Catholic churches for various weddings. That's crazy pants. No one is forced to take communion or cross themselves. She's being completely unreasonable. This right here. I'm a witch. I still stood up for my sister at her Catholic wedding inside a church. I didn't go up in flames or melt. She can't be your maid of honor if she isn't at the ceremony. That's where the paperwork gets signed that she needs to witness. Ordinary guests can RSVP to be at the reception but not the ceremony. The maid of honor cannot. The maid of honor has specific responsibilities, including being a witness to the wedding. And a sibling ought to be able to deal with this. In my opinion, you should stick to your guns and say that if she can't attend the wedding, she isn't welcome at the party. Ask her to point out how attending this wedding is contrary to her faith. My ex-wife and I have 4 kids. Juliet, 18, teens Michelle, Levi and Leah. I have 3 little kids with my new wife, Liam, Sophie and David. I work long hours and travel a lot for my job, so we have a wonderful live-in nanny, Carmen, to help with the kids. My ex-wife believes that men shouldn't have to do chores or face the consequences for their actions. When our girls would go to her house, she'd make the girls cook for their brother, clean his room, do his laundry, etc., and let him take things from their rooms. As a result, the girls don't visit their mom anymore. The problem is, anytime Levi gets in trouble at our house, he calls his mom and she picks him up. No matter how hard I try, he never has to deal with the consequences of his actions, and he's becoming extremely rude and entitled. Carmen's job is to care for the younger 3 and cook for the family. The only thing I need her to do for the older kids is drive them to school, except for Juliet, who drives herself to college. Anything else she chooses to do for the older kids is completely optional. She has a very good relationship with the girls and will gladly help them with chores, take their meal requests, pick things up for them, take them shopping, etc., but doesn't do nearly as much for Levi because he's very rude to her. Levi got into an argument with Carmen over his laundry on Friday. She did a load of laundry for him, and when she put the clothes away, I guess she put them in the wrong places, and he cursed her out and called her stupid and useless. To teach him a lesson, I told him that he's going to do all of her chores during fall break, including the laundry for the younger 3, dinner for the family, lunches for all his siblings, and changing David's diapers. He's on fall break this week, and Carmen supervises while he does the cooking and taking care of his siblings. He protested and called his mom to get out of it, but for the first time since the divorce, she will not be available to get him out of this. She was out of the country for her sister's wedding. Levi has been pretty miserable since Monday, when he started doing chores, and is exhausted by the end of the day. But his behavior towards Carmen has slightly improved. Of course, my ex-wife thinks I'm being cruel to him and making him work like a slave during his break, but he needs to learn his lesson. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It astonishes me that your ex-wife's way of thinking men should not help around the house and wait on hand and foot still exists. Your ex is not doing your son any favours at all. If anything, she's stealing valuable life skills from him every time she gives in to him. Yeah, when I was a teen, I thought my parents were so cruel, making me do things I didn't like. It took me some growing up before I thanked them for all the cruel things they did to teach me a lesson. Good on you for doing the dirty work to help your son be a better human in the long run. That boy needed to learn the lesson somehow. I cannot believe that his mother is coddling him and Cinderella-ing his sisters simultaneously. What's he supposed to do when he gets older and moves out on his own if he's never ever learned or been made to do chores? Bachelors are men and do not reside in their filth. Usually, hopefully. Equality among siblings is also essential to not breed resentment. So don't feel sorry for him. Let him learn to work. I, 20 female, am the youngest in the friend group, 5 not including myself. The rest are between 25 and 27. I've known everyone in the core group since I was born. We lived in a complex, everyone kind of knew everyone, and since all of our families were so close, it was a pick and choose sort of deal. Don't like mom's cooking? Go to Mike's instead, anyone's welcome. I grew up with these 5 like cousins. Every day for 3 school years, I would come home at around 3:45 and spend time with the core 5 in the back of the complex, or out and about until my mum got home. They weren't forced to, but they did it anyway. I'm closest to Michael though. He had a brother who would have been a few months younger than me, but he was born with extreme complications and died when he was a year old. It was devastating, and Mike told me he saw his brother in me. This is all to say that the core 5 and I are extremely close and are family. Anyway, enough backstory. Mike got engaged last week and we were throwing him a party. I don't particularly like his fiancée, Jane, as she seems intimidated by our closeness, but I've reassured her that I see him like a brother, so she has nothing to worry about. I've also kept my feelings to myself. I see no reason to tell Mike I dislike his fiancée, especially since, up until this point, we haven't had any overt issues. Plus, his love life is not my thing to meddle in. I'm a grown adult who can deal with disliking someone without ruining a relationship. Mike and I sat in the back of a flatbed drinking and smoking, and he pulled the blanket up to cover both of us, as British winters are cold. I put my head on his shoulder and I ended up falling asleep. He woke me up as we pulled up to my place. I genuinely didn't think anything of it until a few days later when he came to pick me up. Jane was in the car too. When he stopped for petrol, Jane and I were alone for a few minutes. I tried small talk, but she immediately jumped down my throat about how dare I cozy up to Mike. She said she hates how romantic we act. I reiterated that Mike is my brother and she needs to talk to Mike about her boundaries and issues. When Mike returned to the car, she decided it was time to bring it up. I felt completely embarrassed and went to one of my other friends, not the core 5, for advice. They all told me they get Jane's perspective, especially since he pulled the blanket up and she doesn't know what's going on there. They all said it was a witch move to talk back to her too, since that looked suspicious. Now I'm wondering if I'm an idiot for cozying up next to him. He is my brother, not just by blood. Yeah, the girl trying to get with my now ex-husband reassured me that she didn't see him that way and I told her to back off then. Within a couple of days she was texting him very inappropriate things and he went along with it. It completely ruined our marriage. You are the idiot. If he is like a brother to you, then backing off from doing things like this shouldn't change your relationship with him. But if it does, then he's not just a brother. Good on Jane for confronting you both. You both are the issue here. You two aren't this dumb to think that how you were sharing a blanket and cuddling under it wouldn't get to a romantic partner. She didn't just confront you, she confronted him too. The fact that you felt embarrassed about that is good. Obviously, your dislike is seething through by just this one act alone. She was within her right to mention it to you since you are like his sister after all. Perhaps her place was snuggling up to her fiancé Mike. Suppose Mike is like your brother, then it should have been okay for her to address this issue with Mike in front of you, since it involved both of you. A full disclosure concerning all parties' scenarios. If you were that cold, go snuggle with someone not attached and committed. And to beat it all, this was at their engagement party. OMG, get some boundaries or you will lose your friend. My daughter Hazel, teen, has been going through a phase. I'm not one bit conventionally attractive to say the least, and Hazel is mad at me for giving birth to her and giving her bad genetics. Everything bad that happens to her, she'll blame me. She tells me that I should never have had kids since I knew they would look ugly and monstrous. It's been bugging me and I hope she'll grow out of it. Honestly, sometimes she makes me feel bad for having her. I try to be as polite as I can whenever she says these things, but today was my last straw. She was late for school. When she came home, she told me that she would never be late if she didn't have to spend hours putting on makeup to hide my horrid face. I told Hazel I was sorry and that I could pay for her plastic surgery if she wanted. Hazel has been even colder towards me than she had been before. But am I the idiot for saying that? You are the idiot. You're the adult, so you suck more for appearing to agree with your extremely insecure teenage daughter that she needs surgery to fix her face. I think that's why that was painful for your daughter. It validated her interior dialogue about how she's ugly. She needs you to not agree with that ever. Sorry, but what is wrong with you? OP is a parent, yes, but she's also a human. I can understand that the daughter is frustrated, but calling your mom ugly and making her feel bad that she gave birth to you is disgusting. Sorry, but she can't have sympathy from me about this. I can understand how hard it is with these societal expectations, but to say that the mom is the wrong one in this story is just wrong. Not the idiot, OP. It would be frustrating to be told off by your daughter like this constantly. Also, teenagers can be brutal, so I can only imagine how hurtful it would be to be put down like that continually. I don't think you were the idiot. It probably wasn't the best joke to make, but what response was she looking for? I think you both need to improve your self-esteem. Maybe therapy will help. Honestly, if a kid constantly verbally abused me, called me hideous and said I was so ugly that I should never have procreated, I may have snapped and told them a lot worse. Teenagers are immature, but they know when they're being mean and cruel. For example, if Sis bullied another student because of their looks, there would be no misunderstanding that they knew they were being mean.